So the advantages of Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms is it's an opportunity to build a community of potential players and engage potential interest in your game, as well as finding some possible evangelists who will go the extra mile to help you succeed. If your Kickstarter campaign is successful, then you can also generate some media buzz or get press coverage. One of the challenges of Kickstarter, though, is that it is
Hello, and welcome to Behind the Game, the podcast where we talk to experts in the gaming industry. Today, we are talking to Tony Evans. He is an experienced game designer with a long career across genres and platforms. Tony, welcome. I'm actually selfishly really excited to talk to you because I am currently reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It is about two college students who help design and make this game. It's fiction, it's not a real game, but one of my favorite games that I've recently played is Stray.
Mhm.
The game with the cat where you go through and everything, and like how people come up with the idea to be a cat in this post-apocalyptic world with these weird robot tick looking insects that suck the life out of you. How do you come up with something like that?
I know just what you're talking about, and I played that game with one of my cats. Actually, I took video of him just sitting there blocking like a quarter of the computer monitor, just fascinated with me moving the cat around the space, and yeah, I played nearly the entire game that way. Um, so, talking about creative inception, it comes from different places. I usually advise game designers to not just deep dive into games and game design, but to live their life. Go out and see things. Like when I was in my first role as a level designer at New World Computing. I found great inspiration in just walking around different towns and cities, studying and sketching architecture, and then taking those ideas back into the game. I've also I'm a people watcher, so I sometimes just like to sit in public places and hopefully not creepily observe people in their natural state and sometimes I'll tell stories to myself or if I'm with someone we'll tell stories to each other about like what must their lives be like, what do you think they're doing today. you know Creativity can come from anywhere. It can come from a vast amount of experience in making games. It can come from a vast amount of life experience as well. There is no one single way that makes up a great game developer, but kind of the formula involves you know living a life, finding things that trigger passion, and just having a persistent state of curiosity and as little judgment as possible about the world around you and the people that you interact with.
That's really interesting that you're talking about going and people watching and
Mhm.
trying to put those real life elements into your game. So they even talk about that in the book. They talk about trying to make this little kid walk like a little kid. And then in Stray, when you're playing as a cat, they have such cat-like elements. If you're a cat lover, it's so much fun. When you first turn the game on, and he like pets his ear, you're like, oh my gosh. So that's I think that's really what makes a good game is feeling like you're in real life, but it's an escape to real life, but still having those elements that make you feel connected. And
Stray was a game that really resonated with me, not only because I'm a cat person. My 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 wife and some of my friends say I'm a cat whisperer. I don't know why, but any cat that meets me just like loves me for some reason. It's nothing that I'm trying to do to make it happen, but if my lap is empty, there's generally a cat in there unless I close the door to keep them out. And then sometimes they scratch at the door. I
Yep.
don't know if you can hear that, but one of my cats is snuffling around. Hopefully the mic isn't picking it up.
I love that my Discord like about you section is passionate about cats and avocados, and it has been that since forever. So I am also a big cat lover. Love that when you first get on Stray and you're like kind of experiencing like moving around as a cat, and they do the stretch, and I know every cat owner out there said, "Ooh, big stretch," because that's what you say to your cats in real life. But yeah, it's a very fun game. I think, like I said, those real life elements are really cool. In terms of art style, I know like there's so many different types of art style, to pixel to, you know, real life, more cod like looking, but more cartoon like. Do you have a favorite? Do you have something that you prefer to work on, or something that you've seen even do better than others?
Not really. Like, honestly, like, I mean, super realistic pixel art, cell shaded, it's all based on the specific needs of the project, and the art and style that the team is passionate about bringing, the way that the game wants to achieve its individual identity. What most games want to do is make it so that whatever art style they choose, you look at a screenshot from that game and it's from that game. It's not
Right.
like you look at a screenshot and you're like, is that Fortnite or is that some other game? Or you know, uh, there are some games that, of course, copy other popular art styles because that connects to an audience. Audiences that are familiar and comfortable with Minecraft or Roblox,
Mhm.
or Fortnite. When they see other games that look similar, they gravitate towards it. But in general, like I'm a fan of trying to um, have games have their own visual identities. Because I like it when players can look at a screenshot or video clip and just know, like, oh, that's Stray. You know, it helps make the game stand out a bit, have
Right.
its own identity, and so many different art styles and approaches can accommodate that. The other consideration is um, the narrative aspects of world design. You want to go for an art style that complements your overall narrative. And sometimes that can be discordant. Like, if you have an art style that pulls players out of the world that you've built and the narrative that you've created, then it's kind of it can be a bit discordant. But certain games do this really, really well. Like I would say, Disco Elysium, of course, doesn't have perfect like next generation graphics, but it is so perfect for the setting, that
Mhm.
it's in the world. Um, the world tells a story just as much as the characters tell a story, and that's the sweet spot. That's what I think um, most game developers are trying to achieve with their games.
It's really interesting when we're talking about, different art styles, and this is an old game, but something that I grew up loving with me and my siblings, and it's Kingdom Hearts. Because you would dive into the different worlds. Sometimes it was Pirates of the Caribbean, sometimes it was the Mickey Mouse, like old school black and white, and the way that they had those different art styles like integrate into the game was just I was always looking forward to like jump into that new world. How do you achieve that really specific identity so your game does stand out? Do you like have any insights, or any, if you're a struggling developer trying to make your game stand out, do you have any advice?
I would say work with talented concept artists until you find something that resonates with the team. and don't discount any ideas. Someone wants to try out, like, hey, what would our game look like cell shaded? What would our game look like pixelated? What if the primary color palette is browns and greens? What identity will that bring to our world? Try many things until you land on something that is like, yes, this is our game. This is what it looks like. I'm not an artist myself. I dabble in graphic design,
Right.
but and I have some inkling of the fundamental properties of colors and shapes and things like that. But it really helps to have experts in that can help develop your visual identity. And as a game designer, oftentimes you know it when you see it, and you just have to go through a somewhat iterative and experimental approach until you see something that is what your game should look like.
And I'm sure once you find that identity and you like know this is your game, I- I'm assuming that it also helps you stay on track with keeping that cohesion throughout the whole game. Because sometimes, if you're playing an indie game, I recently played one and it kind of looked a little patchworky, to say the least. Like some of it was anime themed, some of it was more pixelated. Do you have any advice on how to not let that happen? I guess.
Well, things like that happen often when you're focused on different areas of the game at different times and you have certain time constraints you're working under. I've been on projects that have entirely shifted the art style. And it takes time to adapt all of those assets, and to, bring things up to a consistent quality. And if you are working in a very small team, like a indie game development, or even if you're on a very large team, making those things consistent and maintaining that throughout the course of a complex project with all its ups and downs can be very difficult. So that's one reason why I think it is important to establish that visual identity early on, and then stick to it and make it consistent. Um, Put one person, or for larger teams, one team in charge of um, identifying, documenting, and establishing that unique visual identity. Make sure that color palettes are well understood and established, and that anyone that is um, creating art, or helping to build the world adheres to those constraints.
That makes a lot of sense. And with when we're talking about game design, I feel like we have to talk about AI, right? Like that is going to be such a big changer. I mean, it already kind of is, right? Like it can already basically create you 3D models. So, how do you think it's going to change the industry? Like what kind of impact is this going to have on game designers in the future and even game artists?
Overall, I think that AI will lead to great transformation and lots of innovations, by empowering developers and enhancing and personalizing player experiences. Now, here's the big grain of salt. Uh, we need to address ethical concerns about how AI is used in game development. Things like data privacy, potential biases, and procedural plagiarism have to be resolved for AI to reach its full potential to be an awesome tool for augmenting human creativity, not replacing it. Um, some exciting things that I think AI will enable is procedural generation of more dynamic and detailed and realistic worlds. I hold the belief that the world is the most important character in any game, but so many games don't have the resources, or time to fully develop the world. AI will enable world and narrative design, so that it can learn and adapt to player choices in real time, which can lead to far more compelling, accessible, and personalized characterization of game worlds. AI can do this for other characters besides the world. I expect a coming renaissance in dynamic characters, narrative reactivity, and emergent storytelling. You can already see this happening in apps like Character AI, which allows users to interact deeply with realistic AI characters that are created by other users. And then some of those AIs can even create personalized text adventures for people to play. Um, Having gone from AAA to mobile live ops and back again, I learned the value of data-driven development and rapid prototyping and iteration. Um, I've experienced some roadblocks trying to get AAA studios to adopt those modern best practices. AI is going to be able to make analytics and prototyping much more accessible, even for studios that have had difficulty adapting. So, in addition to that, like many more development tasks will be automated, especially ones that require a lot of repetition or call for having a specific set of skills. So some situations where maybe a studio has one resident expert that does a very specific, specialized, proprietary, and non-transferable thing could finally help studios like that pass the bus test with the help of AI. Last but not least, I think that AI will power a revolution in accessibility and inclusivity in games by dynamically adjusting things like game difficulty and controls to accommodate widely different skills and physical and cognitive abilities. When I was a child, I had a friend named Daniel who had cerebral palsy, and it was really disappointing for both of us that we couldn't play Nintendo games together. Well, I think very soon AI is going to empower differently abled people like Daniel to enjoy, you know, games like Elden Ring just as much as I do.
I love that outlook on AI. I'm not even really sure I've quite heard that really positive inclusivity aspect to it. Yeah, that sounds amazing. The more inclusivity, the more we can grow as a human race. And I think that's really great. I'm also really glad you brought up the conversation of we, like as an industry, need to have that talk about it being ethic, right? Yeah, a few
Mhm.
months ago, all of Hollywood went on strike because of AI, basically.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that our entire industry needs to go on strike, but I definitely think that we need to have that conversation. And at what point do we not let it completely take over? But we need it because I think that will allow, like you're saying, allow our industry to grow and make the worlds better and adjust to the difficultiness and allow people of all sorts of situations of their life be able to play Elden Ring and Stray and Mario and all of these really wonderful, great games. So that was some really great insights. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Do you think, I mean, other than AI, of course, do you think there's any other really big shifts coming to the industry?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the only constant in the game industry is change. Game genres rise and fall. They're declared dead and then rise again. Indie games repeatedly trailblazed, um, you know, twisting tried and true game formulas and merging disparate game and narrative mechanics together to invent new ways to play and interact that gamers never knew they needed. Um, I mean, I've seen a lot of change over the years. Like mobile gaming erupted, data analytics and UX started becoming increasingly important to the game industry. Free to play and live ops changed the way that we engage with players, and now we're on the verge of multiple different shifts. AI and procedural content generation, blockchain, XR, brain computer interfaces, cloud gaming, user generated content, niche genres, APX and accessibility. It's anybody's guess how big an effect any of these disruptors are going to have on the industry, and what our industry will look like afterward. But it would be just as foolish to ignore or discount technology like blockchain and AI right now as it was for those who claimed in, circa 2009 that people who played mobile and Facebook games weren't real gamers. Um, AI, for example, uh, as I mentioned, it's changing so fast. People are really struggling to make sense of it. Just look at how people are reacting to OpenAI's Sora and comparing it to last year's hilarious AI generated video of Will Smith eating pasta. Change,
Yeah.
change is always fear inducing, especially
Yeah.
when you feel it's going to negatively impact your livelihood. I remember in the early days of the internet, several of my college professors insisted that all class research be done in a library with books and microfiche instead of using the internet, because using the internet is cheating, even for some of my computer science courses. Um, I think the best thing that you can do is try to find opportunity in any scary change you're facing. Um, Throughout my career, I've spent vast amounts of time and energy learning and mastering hundreds of things that are no longer relevant. Uh, it makes little sense for me to be upset. The world now has no use for my knowledge and experience in 1990s web design, reel to reel tape splicing, MIPS RISC assembly language, or LithTech 2.0 level design. It is never over for you until you've reached the point where you can't or won't learn anything new.
Right.
So for me, the biggest takeaway has been embracing continuous learning and adaptability. So that's why I've taken on a wide variety of roles in the game industry, ranging from content design, writing and narrative design, systems and tools, production and studio management. And I've worked on very different types of games. Indie, AA, AAA, mobile, social, live ops, educational, and kids games. I, I'm grateful for each project, each studio, and each role because they helped me push my boundaries, expand my perspectives, and maybe be a little less afraid of how of scary changes. And I've gotten to work with some really amazing people. Adapting to new technology is really important, but it's also very important to understand what um, what this is going to mean for players and the stories we want to share with them. So to do this, get in the habit of always asking, um, how can we empower players and make this experience we're crafting more immersive, more usable, and more meaningful?
I actually wanted to talk a little bit about your experience working with kids games. There's so much regulation around working on kids games. How did you handle that? How did you navigate that? Do you have any experience or tips that you could give to developers who want to get into that sector of games?
Well, I'm lucky to be currently working with Dark Matter Game Production, a talented team based in Nepal that has a vision to transform how students learn and how teachers teach through a gamified educational platform. Um, and I can't reveal too much about our methods and whatnot. But as a team, we're definitely committed to following all regulations and you know and making sure that we're being sustainable about things like monetization. You know, so regarding that, like I can talk about like my experience with that on Animal Jam, uh, or Animal Jam Play Wild as it was originally called. Uh, so Animal Jam is a 3D mobile social sandbox MMO for kids that blends entertainment and education. First off, one thing you need to understand about um, you know monetizing and regulations in kids apps is that to have any chance of success, you need to offer a product and service that is so compelling that not only is it better in your own way than what competitors offer, but it's simultaneously appealing to both kids and their parents. You have to be able to convince a child to convince their parents to support your product by making purchases, or you have to convince a parent to make a purchase and then have them convince their child to engage with it. So from the start on Animal Jam, our approach was, um, simply to offer persistent value to players and their parents. So no charging for more transient consumables like energy. Anything they buy, they keep, whether it's a red panda animal avatar or a treehouse den or an educational ebook or a superhero costume that lets you fly in the game world. Players can reflect back on their purchases and their experiences and still feel good about them, like even years later. There are, of course, finer details that absolutely include following any regulations, which can vary by locality, and can change over time. But for the most part, if you're following the right steps to protect your customers' personal information, which isn't just a good idea for kids apps, if you're maintaining a safe play and learning environment, and you're not trying to get kids to pay money without their parents' full knowledge and consent, you won't have any problems with regulations. What I've described is kind of the basic approach to Animal Jam's, you know, philosophy and monetization approach that's helped make it a successful product and franchise that's been sustainable on mobile for nearly a decade. Um, I had a fascinating conversation with Gabriel Layden recently. He is the former CEO of Machine Zone and currently in his new venture called Limit Break. When I told him about my approach to monetization on Animal Jam, he laughed at me. He said that I should have used more pop-ups to increase Animal Jam's revenue. I mean, Gabe's track record speaks for itself when it comes to getting people to pay lots of money for games. And talking to him is like getting a master class in monetization design. And I'd be the first to admit that there's so much more I could learn there. And I know my idealism may sometimes make me ignorant, but I feel like I gotta stand by my philosophy because for me it's not about making the most money as quickly as possible, but about providing the best overall player experience. That involves, among many things, developing trust. You can't have a good relationship with the players you serve, and you can't build brand loyalty or a persistent franchise without prioritizing, developing, and never betraying that trust. So while a hockey stick growth curve for the game might sound very appealing, and it might convince VCs to throw millions at you, I'm I'm not convinced that it's the best way to create a better product.
It's really interesting talking about that because I have a 8-year-old cousin and she
Mhm.
loves her mobile games, right? But I was watching her play and I quickly realized she wasn't even playing the mobile game, she was playing the playable ads. That game
Mhm.
had so many ads. It was like every 30 seconds she was getting a new playable ad and she was playing it.
Mhm.
Until it wouldn't let her play anymore, and then she'd go back to her game, click a little bit, and then she'd pop up with another ad and she'd play that. And I was just sitting there watching her with amazement at she doesn't even care that she's playing these playable ads. She doesn't care about the other game that she originally clicked on to play. She wants to play the playable ads. She just wanted to click these buttons, and then it made me really sad for that future generation, their poor little brains are just like click, 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 change, 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 like 15 seconds, attention spans. And I think what you're saying is really important about, your empathy and like putting out a good product that will, especially for children, that will, help the future generations, because they have so much technology, and like who knows what they're going to be able to come up with, 50 years
Yeah,
from now. So we need to take care of those things like that and not spam them with, you know, ads every 30 seconds.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, attention spans have vastly decreased. As experiences have gotten more minute, and certain ads do spam you,
Right.
and some of those advertisement games are actually better than the real games. Some people have actually taken upon themselves to actually build the games like the advertisement, because some of those ads are disingenuous, because you it's an ad for a game and you expect that experience when you download it and click it, but then it's like, oh, I'm now in a multiplayer strategy game, not a game where I get to, move my character around, through a world and solve math problems and stuff.
Don't even get me started on fake ads. They are the bane of my existence. They make me so irrationally angry. And I work
Yeah.
a lot with my communities of the games that I work on, and I am so particular about the kind of ads we get to put out there, because that is bad for our community, and we want to, create this long-lasting game with these players that they take care of us, so we're going to take care of them. And fake ads are absolutely not the way to do that. I disapprove 100%, but um, you know,
And
that's
if you've noticed, one of the techniques they use to generate those clicks is almost every video you see like just a player doing awful at the game, and emotionally that makes players feel like, oh my god, this guy is whoever's playing this is so frustrating. Like obviously you picked the left side, not the right side, and
right.
they're totally messing it up and they failed and they died, and that just makes you want to download that and show that you can do better. um, it's frustrating, and a little possibly underhanded and manipulative, but it is so effective,
Yeah.
which is why people keep doing it.
I want to kind of move on to your funding projects. I know that you do some of that. I would love to know more about Kickstarter, and if you have any advice for maybe some smaller developers, and how to really get out there, that might be listening. I'm sure they would love to hear your opinions.
Some of my most memorable moments in my career were helping with Kickstarter campaigns by In Exile and other studios. Getting to be a stretch goal for the spiritual successor to one of my favorite games of all time, Planescape Torment, was definitely a check mark on my bucket list. Um, I think that, you know, uh, some people have said that, like, oh, Kickstarter is dead, and none of these crowdfunding platforms work for games anymore. But I think there's still, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and more recently GameFound. uh, it's still a viable option. When you consider like success rates, accessibility, and potential funding amounts, I'd say it's, crowdfunding is more viable for most, than, say, securing grants, or getting publisher deals, or finding angel investors. But it might not be better than other options like self-funding or early access. So the advantages of Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms is it's an opportunity to build community of potential players and engage potential interest in your game, as well as finding some possible evangelists who will go the extra mile to help you succeed. If your Kickstarter campaign is successful, then you can also generate some media buzz or get press coverage. One of the challenges of Kickstarter, though, is that it is very competitive, especially in the games category. There are a whole lot of projects that are vying for attention and funding. Um, Also, some people, many people underestimate this, but it takes a lot of time and effort and coming up with compelling content and rewards to have a successful Kickstarter campaign.
Right.
And many crowdfunding campaigns also don't adequately account for the logistics and the cost of fulfilling those rewards. And there's no guarantee of success. Even if your campaign is perfect and well executed, you still could find yourself not reaching your funding goals due to market saturation or unpredictable backer behavior.
Is Kickstarter almost a way to also market your game? I know you said it's very competitive, but like you
Mhm.
said, if it succeeds, then you already have kind of this fan base and loyal, community that's right there behind you. So you have people who are going to play your game once you release it. Have you ever, like, maybe not even necessarily having a big Kickstarter like budget or needing a big budget, but even just doing it for marketing reasons? Do you think that's something that could be done?
Yeah, I think Kickstarter is one of many ways, and that of building a community around games.
Hmm.
And I I recommend in any regard, whether you're doing a Kickstarter bid or early access, um, be very active on social media as early as possible. Like, don't just do this after your game is in beta, because it can come across as a pre-launch marketing tactic.
Right.
You want to enlist skilled and passionate community moderators who are based in the same countries as your target audiences, and ideally also members of the same community that you want to engage with. Cover the spectrum of Discord, uh, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and various forums where your communities exist. Build relationships and share development updates, respond to feedback and answer questions directly, um, and connect with your audience in real time whenever you can. Kickstarter or otherwise, consider if like an early access program is right for your project. That can help your team get valuable feedback and data on your early builds and generate some excitement. And you don't just have to do early access via Steam, because there's a lot of talk about how crowded that is. But there are other ways of doing it. Like if you're going the Kickstarter route, as a backer reward at certain tiers, you can offer early beta access to your games, and specific one-on-one feedback sessions with the development team. That tends to be a very um, popular reward for some fans and really dedicated members of the community for Kickstarter campaigns.
But I'm going to leave you with one last question. If you
Okay.
could have a time machine and you could go back to your younger self and give yourself a cheat code to, advance your career faster or get to where you are now, what would your cheat code be?
I don't know, invest in Amazon. uh,
Okay, yeah, fair. And maybe some crypto early on.
yeah, I'd say because I'm a game designer to my core, but I didn't always feel that it was possible, for me to be a game designer. If I could have told myself like this is a possibility, pursue it earlier, gear your education and research towards the goal of being a game designer. I think I could have come into the industry a little sooner, and had the opportunity to be involved in some of the earlier you know projects and studios that I've followed most of my life.
Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, it was an absolute pleasure. If you're going to GDC, I would love to meet up. If not, definitely, I want to friend you on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And it was really great to meet you.
Thank you, everybody, so much for watching and listening. Make sure to follow along for future episodes and like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you again soon.